And it is my honor to call the meeting to order. The Advisory Economic Development Advisory Council for Grand County. We have
Are we on test? Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We have a really important meeting today with two major topics. The first is a conversation with the mayor of the city of Moab. Welcome. Commissioner McGann will introduce you formally. And the second item is the interview for the selection of applicants to be nominated to the commission to serve on this board for the next 2 years. I'm going to ask you, Mary, if you would begin by introducing our guest.
Yes, I'm excited to introduce Joette Langanese, our mayor. And also, I'm really excited. I'm going to do a plug. Joette and I have worked for the last 8 years to get the tailings pile moved from the banks of the Colorado River. If you're not busy tomorrow at 9:30, there's going to be a big celebration. We only have 1/8 of the pile left to move. We have moved 7/8 of the pile.
That's wonderful.
And it wasn't supposed to be done until 2036. And it's going to be done in 2 years. So big wigs from Washington, D.C. are coming tomorrow. So please come if you are available. So we've been working together a long time, and I'm excited that she's the mayor. I know she's doing a dynamic job. And it was Chris's idea to get the city more involved with the economic development. Because most of the population in Grand County lives in the city of Moab. So that's where most of our economic drivers are. So we thought it was really important to have you at the table so that we can work together to get grants and such that will help, not just to help the city and thus help Grand County. So welcome. Thank you.
Welcome. And you should officially introduce yourself.
Oh, Mary McGann, Commissioner.
Are we doing introductions?
Let's do it.
Jasmine Duncan, Castle Valley, member of this board.
Sky White, Economic Development Department.
Karen Guzman Newton, last meeting with the Economic Development Advisory Group.
Forrest Rogers with the Moab Museum and current chair of the advisory board.
Chris Wilson, member of this board, private sector, a small coffee roasting company in town. Thanks for coming.
Melissa Jeffers, member of the board representing the community at large.
And Frederick Gill, Economic Development Department.
Dave,
Zackerson, potential
interviewee member. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we have several guests online. Justin, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Justin Bergman. I'm representing Utah State University.
Wonderful, and thanks for being with us again. And Elisa?
Hi, Elisa Martin, Grand County Planning and Zoning.
So welcome, everybody. First order of business after the introductions is the reporting any conflicts of interest. Hearing none. Disclosures. Hearing none. Ex parte communication. Hearing none. So let's jump into our first conversation. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mary and Joette.
Oh, God. I've already introduced her. I thought that was my only job.
Back to our last meeting, Mary, for future consideration was talking about in the future having an elected city official on the actual
yes.
EDAB board that you want to discuss the possibility of
Okay,
writing that in. That's just my notes from last time. That's why.
Yes, so we would like to officially add you to the mayor of Moab City to this board. Me? Yes,
Or an elected.
or an elected official. We think it's important to be an elected official.
Right. Well, right now we have Michael, who's our staff, and I believe your bylaws only allow for one I think it's two, and I think Jasmine, you're probably the second municipal appointee, because I think the bylaws say two municipal members of the board, non-voting members. And so it seems like if you want another city representative, that
We're gonna have to.
change your bylaws.
Yeah, that's
If
what
you
we're
wanna do that. We did, and I think for me, in order to, I do know that we are planning to appoint somebody to your steering committee for the
Okay,
community destinations. I think I spoke to you about, or I left you a message. We wanted to wait till after the election because there's two folks that I think would really be good, and I wanted to ask them what their opinions are and if they would want to serve on that. So Ben, if you could let me know when the next meeting is, because we're gonna be making those appointments in January.
okay,
Then I could share that with whoever we appoint.
Okay.
I think it's really important that we serve on that. In terms of this board, it's like, I'm not quite sure what this board does. To be honest, my understanding was it was formed for grants opportunities for, that you were, kind of had to have a community economic development board in order to qualify for those RCOG grants and other state grants. And of course, we would like to work with you all on those grant applications when we can. So it'd be good to know exactly what the purpose and the charter is of this this board.
You're asking the right question at the right time, because we anticipate reviewing and updating the bylaws for the advisory board in the next couple of months. You're right, the board, part of the history of this board is it was established in order to qualify to compete for grants through the Rural Counties Grant, the Rural Counties Opportunity Grants, et cetera. There was a county board before that focused on economic development, but had not really gained traction when the Rural Counties Grant opportunities were funded by the legislature. So I think we're at a point where, as an advisory board with a new director and a strategic planning process about to be launched, actually it has started. The board is, as I understand it, positioned to be a source of advice and counsel to the department, to deliberate on future grant opportunities and projected awardees for those grants. There's also an extraordinary amount of talent sitting around this board. And we expect to have a lot of involvement in the strategic planning process itself. So it is an advisory board. We work closely with Ben and Sky and other members of the department as is appropriate. And we've been able to bring people together over the last 9 months or so to secure almost $2 million in funding for different parts of the county's operation, different community organizations who are supporting our economic development efforts. We'll actually have a spreadsheet to show how those grants have unfolded. And, one of the things that I personally believe is that the county doesn't do as effective a job of telling the story of these investments as the city does. And I know the county budget is tight, but I think the county could really benefit from having a public information officer, as does the city. So that's my answer to the board, but others can respond as well or add to that.
Sure, I'll jump in if you don't mind. I guess for me, being on this board for a while now and trying to push forward some projects, some with more success and some with less success, one of the things that I've sort of come to is that, there's nothing in the way that our mandate is written that says that we should be helping foment economic development within the county, but not within the city. And in fact, it would be kind of crazy to try to do that, I think. Yet, because we're a part of the system of Grand County governance, we have ties to the county and I think have less ties to the city. We have a representative from the city, which is fantastic, having Michael be a part of this board. But I think in order for us to be able to do our best job of helping guide and promote economic development across the county, very much including Moab City, there's a sense that the stronger links that we can have to what the city's doing, the more effective we can be and more we can offer, the better we can align things so that we're not just aiming to fund projects that work outside of the city boundaries. And I guess something that just from a very personal standpoint, not so much from like, not at all speaking for this board, I think the fact that there is an economic development department and advisory board at the county level, and there's not something so comparable at the city level. Economic development is obviously handled within several different departments, different sort of aspects of the city government. It's something where, I don't know, it just feels to me like, I don't think there's a need necessarily to duplicate what the county's doing within the city, but rather it just sort of adds to me to the importance that I see in us building bridges so that we can coordinate efforts. And I mean, there was a specific sort of potential project that we were looking at that had to do with Main Street and bringing in state funding to help address some of the concerns that Main Street businesses saw, safety issues on Main Street. And I think in that process, you know, ultimately the city of Moab decided to go after a grant to help fund the entirety of the dispersed parking plan.
Or
Right.
offset.
Yeah,
Offset the cost.
better way of saying it, yeah. Which was great. I mean, I think that was a really good use of that potential grant money. But I think we found ourselves, I don't know, feeling like we saw something that felt important to work on within the county to help promote economic development. And there was just a challenge in the way that projects and priorities and plans were aligned between the city and the county that made it not work this time around. And our thought was, if we can do a better job of coordinating and partnering with the city, then we can do a better job of sort of having things be on the same schedule so that we can push in the same direction at some time when it's appropriate and there's consensus across all of the parties. And so anyway, that's kind of a part of the conversation that led us to wanting to invite you here and, you know, ask the very specific question I think that Mary and Ben put forward as to whether it would be good to have a member, an elected official from Moab join the board. But I think also ask a much broader question of just how can we partner together, city and county, to promote economic development? You know, and so if there are other ways that you think that we could be doing a better job of partnering with the city, so that we're sharing information, aligning plans, planning processes, getting, you know, tackled together, things like that. You know, I think those would all be things that we'd be really interested in order to try to sort of, you know, put the pieces in alignment and not have them bump into each other as much at times.
Well, we have a strategic plan process that we do every January, and we'll be doing that on the 11th and 12th. And that kind of shapes our budgetary process for the fiscal year. And unfortunately, our fiscal year is July to July. So we do all this planning in January that doesn't really start until July, which is a little confusing. And one of our big projects, in fact, I just met, we have a meeting with the city and the county on a every other month basis with 2 county commissioners and 2 electeds from the city and then our managers. And one of the things that came up was the downtown plan and how we can, you know, really focus on downtown. And I know, Karen, that's a passion of yours as to how we can really look at making our downtown more user-friendly, and that kind of can boast economic development. And so we're going to do a Kaylin just said to me, you know, we need to think of a better name, because it's really not it's a downtown plan, but it's really more sustainability plan for the businesses down there, how we can help grow and make them better with what we do infrastructurally downtown. And so we're gonna be going out for a consultant next year for that. Probably wouldn't get anybody on board till after July, but start working towards that. And that would be a great collaboration effort between the city and the county, it seems like to me. But I also feel like the city really wants to it's like our downtown, you know, and so we want to really oversee what happens down there with the support of the county, of course, because that always makes
I
for
think
better grant opportunities and everything else.
where there could be some good parallel is, it'd be good for us to know what that plan is. Yes, it is a city downtown, but we are trying to build marketing portfolios around those businesses. So if we understood what your strategy or what that was, we would tailor a bit, because I'm gonna put myself in front of the commission probably before the end of 23, this next go around, for a marketing surge that specifically targets downtown retail and restaurant and hospitality. That's gonna have what we're putting together as our own measurement plan. And I think we'd be much more effective if, as we develop those strategies, we knew along the way what city or anyone else was trying to do in those areas, because we want to highlight and maximize that versus worry who's doing which part of the work. It's, we don't see a line between the county and the city, so that would probably be a place where this would be very helpful.
Yeah, we don't have anything to share with you now, we're just getting started.
Which is fine, but I just, this is one that is highly, it's on the radar screen for a lot of businesses asking us to help promote and inspire to get people down there, and so.
Yeah, and I think
That's what we should be, you should know what we're doing as well, so.
Yeah, and I think the county's been doing that for a long time in terms of promoting downtown and that's great. And we just want to come up with a plan to make it better, and to kind of, the ideas that Karen has is what we want to do down there. Let's look at it holistically and not just piecemeal. And so for me, and I think for staff and for our council, planning is better than just saying, hey, we want all the cars off of Main Street, which that's gonna be an issue, but that's coming, sooner or later, how we can look at it more holistically than just one thing at a time. And we intend to do that. That was part of our planning process last year. We talked about moving forward with that, so we're gonna be moving forward with that. It just, we had other priorities until now.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense. I think you probably already know this, but there's definitely been interest from this board in helping find ways to bring state funding to efforts like that. And so having the planning process take place is, hearing that you're moving forward with it all is great. Maybe something I think that we'll be excited to participate in whatever way you would invite us into that. Or whether that's even just as citizens or as, or as representatives of this board, whatever that case may be. And then, find ways that we can try to push projects forward to help make it
Yeah, and
happen.
I think that's exactly what we want to do. Mary and I've had an idea for years about how we can make downtown not so Main Street oriented, and kind of the back side of 100 West and 100 East, or more kind of the pedestrian areas. That's a big, thoughtful process. That, I don't know if our downtown plan will do that, but it'll kind of lead us to those outcomes.
Yeah.
So.
That's great.
So a question that I would have is, so we were stuck with this potential funding before, and the county was not able to apply to get money for the city, which they were like, we would just hand you over the check. So, having a staff member who's not responsible to citizens in the community as much as a representative, do you think, it would, and I would ask this board, would it make more sense to have a city council member in lieu of a staff member? That would be a possibility, so we're not, overstepping, having too many city members involved, but.
Well, I would think both, because we have staff members from the county, a whole bunch of staff members. And so really it's already heavy on the staffs on the county side. I think having an elected official and then Michael would balance it out better. I could see having both and changing our bylaws to do so.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like having a staff person who's day-to-day, I agree with Mary. I think it would be beneficial to perhaps have both, because having that person that's there day-to-day that can work out and work with staff, and then the council person or the mayor, whoever the elected is, can bring that back to their constituents into the council, whereas the staff person is actually going to carry out whatever it is that we recommend. So it seems to me having that balance, and because you guys are saying, Moab is, the heart of Grant County, what's wrong with having two of us?
Yeah, I think that is right.
I think the reality has been that for the last 18 months to perhaps 2 years, with the transition in leadership in the county's economic development department, these multiple grant opportunities coming along with a relatively thin staff. We were in a position where we were always working to find the appropriate projects to put together for the next couple of grants. And as I said, almost $2 million in almost 2 years was a lot to secure. But the strategic planning process that the county is doing, along with the planning process the city is doing, if we can bring those together, we have a chance to look longer term, not just the next grant cycle, but the next couple of grant cycles.
Kind of be more proactive for the future.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense, I think that would be great. And there's probably a lot more grants out there than we know about. I mean, this board was primarily on those state grants that was required by the state, but I bet there's a lot more that if we did it jointly, we'd have much greater success.
Exactly.
I just think it'd be exciting to have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I apologize, Joy, I failed to send you a list of all the people who serve on this board, both the appointed as well as the ex officio, because we, as Mary said, we have a number of staff, county staff who participate.
So why, this is just a question, why wouldn't the city get a vote? How was it determined who was voting and who was not voting?
Once again, I think your timing is perfect, because that was
I'm also
the,
non-voting.
the state had specific requirements of representation on
Right.
what they called the Community Economic Board.
Right.
And then the county adapted and frankly enlarged or added more potential voices to it. But you're asking a very valid question.
And I think the city is a little bit different than the county. It wouldn't make sense for me to vote because this is an advisory board, so whatever.
We're ex officio because it's gonna come to you eventually.
It's always, so it's me, to come to me, but it's not gonna come to the city. So it would be, if we redo our bylaws, I think it would be appropriate for both city staff to have a vote because they don't get a choice in the final. They don't get to vote in the final. That's my thought anyway.
Yeah.
But, and we are in the process of looking at our bylaws, so I think that would be an appropriate time to do some tweaking.
I mean, I think the current breakdown is kind of the ex officio members are non-voting and the members that are appointed by the commission are the voting members.
Right.
Like, I don't know that in reading the law that it has to work that way. That's just kind of, that's how it was created though. The first one.
Well, it's good that you guys are relooking at your bylaws. I think that would be really helpful. And what's the timeline for that, Ben?
I don't think I am the one to answer that in my end. We do it right at the first of the year. We reviewed them a couple months ago. Sky and I did with the admin, but I believe that there's a yearly review, right, with the county attorney.
I think it's like first thing on the agenda is the new board can look at the bylaws and make recommendations.
And then I would ask Commissioner, then do we take that in front of the commission to change that bylaw?
Yeah, they have to.
Okay,
So then they program a new process.
so is this something we need to take forward as a commission item out of our department to vote on a commission meeting?
Yeah, eventually.
Okay.
Once everybody's hammered it out, and that's gonna take a couple meetings or even have a small committee that works outside of the board might be the best thing, is people that are interested in doing that, and then take the ideas to the board, and then the board looks them over. So it probably wouldn't be till the first meeting in February, realistically,
Okay.
that we would be able to vote on it as a commission.
Okay,
Because
so
we'd have our first
I
meeting,
think that's the answer.
and that would be pushing it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Yeah, so by the time you were doing your budget, we might have it done.
That doesn't mean we can't come and observe.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it does, you know,
We're
Michael will
open.
still be
Yeah.
coming.
Absolutely.
I'll appoint a member to your Better Destinations Steering Committee. Hey, Vegan.
How you doing?
Nice to see you.
Better figure.
And so I'll get that taken care of at our meeting. And I've already talked to council about the idea of having an elected serve on this board. So it's already been, it's not like this is gonna be new, but I think until the bylaws are changed, you know, we'll just kind of keep it status quo, and then when you guys are ready, Michael will let me know, and we'll get somebody on the board.
Sounds great.
Okay?
That's
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Thank you.
You know,
much.
we kind of jumped in with something very specific and very focused, but I'd be interested in hearing your sense of your state of the city, off the cuff comments about where things are and where you see
With the city?
where you see 2024
The
coming.
city is in really good shape. You know, that doesn't mean that we are perfect. You know, we have a lot of challenges, of course, just like the county. But I feel really good about our staffing situation. You know, we finally got a police department that's almost fully staffed. We just hired a new assistant chief. You know, Michael came on several months ago as our community development director. So I feel like we're in a really good place right now. And the council that is going out, you know, they were great. The last 2 years have been a really wonderful experience for me personally, and I think we've gotten a lot accomplished. And our last meeting last night with the outgoing council, we approved a lot of plans. So we had a lot of planning, and now we're gonna start implementing those plans. And there was sustainability plan and Parks and Recreation master plan and the hazardous mitigation plan, and there's some others. But so I think we're in good shape. We're gonna have a busy year. Property tax is gonna come up, you know, I'm putting that out there. It's gonna be a conversation that we're gonna have, so we're gonna hear about it, I'm sure, from the public. But we do have to have that conversation. And I'm looking forward to the new council members that just are elected. They're gonna be great too. So I feel very fortunate. Had a good group of people that decided to run, and happy with the outcome. So I think we're in good shape, and really looking forward to this downtown plan. We just talked about it, like I said, and I think that's something that this group in the city would be really excited to start moving forward. I personally think it's a great thing. It needs to happen. And, you know, maybe that's something that we can kind of prioritize when you guys move forward with whatever direction this board is gonna go.
So is this a whole new plan? Cause wasn't there one that was
There's
done in
another one.
2017?
This is gonna be more about infrastructure needs and sustainability of what we have. So, you know, it's gonna be a much bigger, I mean, that downtown plan that you're talking about was like.
I never saw it, so
Yeah, and it never got approved by the city, so it was never official. I looked at it because I heard about it, I think through you. You know, and there's a lot of things in that plan that have been implemented, like the dispersed parking was one of them. I can't remember exactly all of them, but I think it would be important to whoever we hire, that they incorporate what that plan has into what we're gonna move forward with. So there's a plan that's like 5 years old now, and it never was officially adopted. But it's been, apparently they've been looking at it and using some of the recommendations.
I was really interested in at our last meeting when the consulting team was here. And they mentioned conducting a business sentiment survey, which I think will also provide a lot of information as the downtown plan starts to evolve.
Yeah, that would be
Because-
great.
Because we always talk about the businesses, but sometimes we just don't get those voices in our planning. And so I think that that's gonna be a great help as you get a sense of what, especially the merchants on Main Street are concerned about.
Yeah, you know, and Forrest, it's great that you bring that up, because it seems like we do a lot of surveys lately. And I'm sure whenever we do our plan, they're gonna wanna do a survey. So it would be great if we could to get all the answers in the survey that you guys are doing, and I don't even know what the questions would be. But
Right.
I don't think it's rocket science, you know, whatever our plan is gonna wanna know the same thing.
But even more than
So-
that, you guys, I mean, if we could have some conversations that are sort of ongoing, if there are, I mean, the county's paying for this plan that's going to include a survey, and there are a couple specific questions that you guys need asked to go forward with your downtown plan. Let's just put them in there and save you guys $20,000, you know, it's crazy,
Exactly.
right?
Well, and you know, I mean, there's just a lot of surveys, I think people get survey tired.
Sure.
And, you know, this is an important one though, because you're right, it doesn't, you know, we haven't really reached out to the businesses exclusively. Have we, Karen?
No.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important piece that you guys are gonna be looking at, so we'll get somebody on that board and, and make
What's
that
your
happen.
stakeholder? You'll be seeing the report out.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you could give me information about it and the next date for the
Sure.
meeting, that, and I don't know if you have it scheduled out or if they.
We are, yeah, and we also have a public website that everything, so we're doing this transparent, so everyone in the city can see this. So we'll just get you registered in the website, but also get you scheduled.
Okay, yeah, just send me the
Yeah.
details and I'll take care of it. That'd be great then. Thanks.
You got it.
I think when we first started talking 18 months ago about the strategic planning process, and we looked at all of the studies that the consultants were expected to read to get a sense of where we are, you know, to prepare them. You know, it was a dozen
Right.
just from the county and associated entities. So, you know, I think I know there's a lot of eagerness to stop planning and start doing.
You know, you're absolutely right. I've heard that from the council. It's like, all we do is plan. And so, like I said, these last 2 years have been adopting a lot of plans. Now we have to implement them. And so, and again, I also think it's important to plan so that you don't, you know, just.
You're never not planning.
Right, exactly, exactly. So, but I do agree with you. It's just, you know, there's a lot of plans.
Yeah.
And not a lot of action. So I think that's important for us to act
Yeah.
now that we've got them.
Anything else for Joanne?
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for,
really.
thank you for
bet.
coming.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, no,
very
thanks for
much.
inviting me.
Absolutely.
We'll just continue.
Please.
All
Yeah,
right,
it's good to see you, Jeff. You too. All right, I'm out of here.
thank you. Thanks for coming. All right.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow, 9:30.
Where? You're gonna be at the site?
Mark,
No,
At
it's
the
gonna
Mark.
be at the moment.
Mark.
Moab Arts
You
and
should come
Recreation
down.
Center. It's gonna be,
Hope you
they
do
have,
something. We've already-
3 really deputies, secretaries
We'll see
that are
14
coming
tons when you
from,
get like tons here.
Washington. So
Really?
we've never had people that high.
Try it out already.
I'm surprised.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that'd be great. After tomorrow.
Welcome, Colette. I saw you join us a little bit ago. Would you introduce yourself to the group?
Sure thing. My name is Colette Cox, and I'm the Outreach Manager for Grand County from the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. Happy to be here today.
You have frequently encouraged us to work hand in glove with the city. And so you're a witness to the start of conversations, and we expect cooperation and collaboration.
Fantastic. I think you're both doing amazing things from the city side and the county side, and specifically with the projects that you've both worked on with Governor's Office. And I see very good things in your future.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we are ready to move to the second. Welcome, Biga.
Thank you,
Say
Forrest.
hello.
Hello, I'm Biga. I'm the Moab to Monument Valley Film Commissioner. Sorry for my tardiness. I was on a scout.
Is it really fair to say that you're the commission?
I am the Moab to Monument Valley Film Commissioner.
Okay.
Correct, I'm the commish.
You're the commission.
Before we didn't, it wasn't the county commissioners, it was the county council, so it wasn't so weird, but now it's slightly weirder. 2 years in.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
We're glad you're here.
And congratulations on your appointment.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay.
This board, she's not only the commissioner, she's the new board member for the AFCI, which, you saw the paper today. Pretty big deal, so
Yeah,
we're pretty proud of that.
Association of Film Commissioners International, so I'm on a board that represents 300 film commissions across the globe.
around the world. Wonderful. Well, I just wanted to let you know that we are talking with Utah Arts and Museums about hosting for a period of time the traveling exhibit.
Yes, Fletcher got in touch with you, great,
Yeah, thank you for that.
you're very welcome.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's what, we'll have to find a place to put it.
Do you have an employee yet?
No, Office of One Person Film Commissioning. with-
One thing at a time.
with-
Gotcha.
one
No, no,
thing
I
at
was
a
just
time.
curious. I like you're international. and Good work, yeah.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, you need a staff.
Yeah, a citizen of the world, a citizen of the world. Can we show the spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Is that all right? I meant to do this before Joette left, but thanks to Sky, we have a summary of the distributions that the county through this board has made over the last, basically the last 18 months. For the STAR grants, which is that far right-hand column, almost $2 million, 35 businesses received grants. And it's a real blend of businesses, community serving organizations and the like. And the total in the next to the last column on the right is also just about $1 million for the different variations of the rural county grants and the rural county opportunity grant, which used to be Plan B for the rural counties grant. So that's what I meant when I said I think the county needs to tell this story in more effective ways. It's not about this group, it's about the county making this funding possible to the community. I know it's hard to read, but we can send a hard copy to everybody.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, hard copy to everybody.
Or email. Right, it's probably.
Thank you.
I think that's right.
So,
The commission gave Red Tail at 95,000.
Mhm.
Is that for the
Salt Lake.
Salt Lake lights? Are we?
They're thinking that they needed the startup and they're hoping it will be solvable so they can continue it without help from the county.
Have you guys gotten employment numbers from
Well,
them?
they haven't started yet.
They started in October.
No, they didn't. They were going to, but because the other airline,
SkyWest.
SkyWest expanded, they're gonna start when SkyWest is supposed to be done at the end of.
advertising already. Yeah,
Yeah, they're advertising, but I think it's going to be end of January is
End of January, February, as I recall.
when they start.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they're gonna take over when Skywest leaves.
Right.
And they might be doing it, but anyway, that's what I understood,
I think they,
unless they changed.
what was that?
I think they may be all right.
They did.
I think they're on a
October 1st.
limited, on a loop route right now, so that may be changing as well, so.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Siri.
Siri.
To you.
It's like twice a week.
She's a mouthy one, isn't
Yeah.
she, Siri? Okay. Okay, so we have 4 applicants for the positions that will be vacant at the end of this month. 2 of them are for representatives from the private sector. 1 of them is for a Grand County voter. And and Karen has graciously accepted the responsibility of leading us through the interview process and to pose questions to the applicants. Dave, come sit at the table and join us.
So I received an order as to how this is going to go. We're gonna start off with Dave Sackerson and move to Ben, then to Forrest and Ashley. So is everyone okay with that order?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. So we'll, So we'll start, one thing I did notice, and Boris, I'm not sure, but, your application was dated 1952. 12/12/1952.
He's been really wanting to be on this.
Yeah.
Some of us start dreaming young.
I don't know what the question was.
But it was, I
Your
think it was just
birthday?
the date of the application.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so somehow, I don't know how.
So you've been pretty good for that.
Just making
right?
sure we're sharp.
Yeah.
It was a test.
Okay, so, Mary Saxon, I'm going to, ask you, we have 5 questions, super simple, and then we'll let the group, if there's any, follow-up questions, we'll go ahead and proceed with that. So to start off, I would just ask, can you please introduce yourself? What brought you to Moab and why? And what community activities are you involved in?
You know, that's a pretty short,
Like.
anyway, I'm Dave
Yeah.
Salterson. What was the first question?
Just introduce yourself. How long have you been in Moab? What brought you?
I've
brought
been
you
in
here?
Moab for 53 years. Believe it or not, yeah. I was recently, or at the time I was living in Seattle, Washington, actually Bellevue, Washington. Working in the grocery business, and I've just gotten out of the service, 6 years with the Washington State National Guard, protecting Seattle. And then their defense batteries in Seattle. But at any rate, I called my grandparents who happen to live in Moab. I've got a bunch of relatives that live here, the Rapps and the Dominic's, a bunch of other people, and called them up, and I said it was during the oil embargo, and I said, you guys got any gasoline? My grandfather said, yeah. I said, do you have any trouble getting the gasoline? Nope, don't have any trouble at all. Walked in, quit my job, left Moab. Originally planned on backpacking with my uncle and my cousin through Mexico, and got to Moab and started having a lot of fun. It was a very fun community back in those days. I won't elaborate. At any rate, I ran out of money. Didn't take long, and I had to go to work, and the first job I had was with Hub Newell, who happened to be the surveyor for Grand County at the time, and they were building the new bank on the corner, which was where whatchamacallit, Wells Fargo is now. And I never ran a jackhammer in my entire life, right? So what did Hub put me on? The contractor put me on, we got to break up this concrete, so they put me on a jackhammer. The first day, and I jackhammered my toe. And that ended my construction career right there. And then, yeah, I went to work for Ralph Miller right after that, Miller Supermarket, which is now Village Market. Worked for Ralph for quite a while, and then about 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then I met my wife, beautiful Melody Leonard, and we've been married now for 49 years. And then I went to work for Plateau Supply, selling mining supplies throughout my area was Western Colorado, all of Utah, Nevada, and Bishop, California. So I traveled a heck of a lot. At any rate, I worked for them until the uranium industry went in the tank, and then started the business. The movies, video library. We were the second video library in town with Kyle Bailey and I, and my uncle started that. That lasted a couple of years, and then Paul Mayberry, my wife, went to nursing school, and she worked for Paul Mayberry, Dr. Mayberry, and, he contracted cancer and was not in good shape. He owned the Gopher stores and, on the west end of town, and Dave's Corner Market, and, one in Blanding. And he asked us to buy the one on the corner. And I still own Dave's Corner Market. My son-in-law is running it, my daughter, and, next question, please.
What community activities are you involved in?
Well, I was, one of the things I did back in, the late seventies was running for Moab City Council. I served, 2.5 terms on the Moab City Council, took 2 years off, and then decided to, run for mayor. And I was mayor for 16 years. And, did that, and now believe it or not, I'm a priest in the Episcopal Church. I was ordained back in 2021, and I serve St. Francis Episcopal Church over on King Creek, where the city's gonna tear up the road here pretty quick and make some improvements. And I'm currently the priest in charge there.
Oh, well, thank you.
You didn't know that, did you?
I know, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. I've seen you over there. So, the Economic Development Advisory Board, exists to advise and support economic development, the Economic Development Department.
Right.
In its efforts to strengthen, local businesses. What do you think are Grand County's greatest assets and attributes are?
When I came to Moab back in the day, it was all mom and pop. There was a lot of resident owner businesses primarily. And it wasn't until McDonald's came, and then we were discovered by corporate America. But I think the real cornerstone of this community is the local businesses. And I think, there's still quite a few left, quite a few mom and pop operations and local owners in this community, but it's primarily corporate anymore. So what I think, this board could actually do is recognize that and try to grow that local business clientele in this community and support those businesses, because that's the backbone. Corporates are focused on one thing, and that's profit, and make as much money as we possibly can, and it doesn't really stay in the community. So I think having that perspective and bringing that attribute or that perspective to this board would be beneficial to the county and to the board.
What do you think, are Grand County's biggest challenges?
Well, as a citizen, the biggest challenge is being able to live here in this community. We're property tax, as a business owner, I took a hit on property tax this year. And, when we first took that business over about 30 some years ago, it was about $1,400-1,500 a year property tax, and this last year was about $8,000, $9,000. Which, that's substantial. That's a substantial hit. So things are becoming, becoming very expensive to live here. And how are we going to be able to maintain the population and keep the people in town and keep them employed and working and being able to live here and not price them out of here. You know, there's been a lot of communities in the west, like Telluride or Aspen or even Park City anymore, you know? You can't live there. So you gotta have workers. You gotta have a place for people to live and to work and be a part of the community. So that's a challenge. That's a huge challenge, how we're gonna address that.
So the third question, it might be a repeater, or it feels like a little bit to you, but it said, what professional experience and perspectives would you bring? Oh, I'm sorry. So it's not to the forthcoming strategic planning process. Well, so that was a question.
That was the question. State that
What professional experience and perspectives would you bring to the forthcoming strategic planning process?
Well, you know, you're talking, you know, this downtown improvement, and granted, I think there's an opportunity to do some things downtown, that plan. There's a couple of ways I think you can look at it, and I think we can do it both ways. The biggest obstacle to downtown is the truck traffic. I'll be honest with you. I think you could beautify that whole place down there. I was just recently in Taos. Has anybody been to Taos? And that road that runs through Taos is jam-packed, cars, trucks, a lot of trucks. I mean, that's a main north-south route through New Mexico. We've got the same situation here, you know, and beautifying downtown is one thing, but, you know, I mean, I think you can only go so far. Maybe perhaps another, and I'll talk to Joette about this, but perhaps not eliminating parking on that downtown, I don't think is the right venue. Why not capitalize on it or monetary, make it, you know, putting meters in. You got people down there that'll park there and walk away and 5 hours later come back and maybe move their car or leave it there all day. So, I mean, metering it, monetize that, I'm sure would help the city out a little bit as far as revenue is concerned, but I think, you know, you've got to take a big worldview approach, a 30,000 foot approach at this thing. And I think, yeah, you can make improvements downtown, but I really think you've got to really be careful how you're going to do that. And truck traffic, boy, it's dangerous. My wife, she crosses the street every day, and she's almost been hit 3 times in the last 6 months, you know. Trucks going through there and cars going through there. We live right on 3rd South, so.
So the next question, what would you hope to gain from the involvement in that? So I apologize because the county, so what Joette was talking about was a downtown plan. The county is going through a strategic planning process, and they just hired consultants to do that. So it was more to speak to that plan. And the next question is, how would you hope to gain, what would you hope to gain from involvement in the county's economic?
Hopefully I can contribute to the discussion. I think I bring a different perspective from my experience and how I feel about things. So I think I bring a unique view. to it.
And then, the last question is, would you be able to participate, regularly in person or in Zoom? For these meetings, they're the last Wednesday of every month from 3 to 5.
Yeah, that's no problem.
That's not a problem.
Preferably not Zoom. I get enough Zoom.
You don't-
I'm done with
Yeah.
Zoom.
That's it for the questions. Does anybody have any follow-up questions for Dave?
Go ahead, come on.
Marla?
Absolutely.
So could you just describe the, food service that you provide for the county and the, nearby residents? No questions asked, food drive, because I think that's important for everyone here to know about. And who it serves and the size of the numbers, because I think that's very, important to, understanding who lives in this community as well as serving a need there.
Well, it's part of our ministry to the community and, you know, it's probably my fault. You know, I've always taken a community view through my political activities and everything else. So when I became the priest in charge at St. Francis, I said, you know, we need to do something for the community, you know. So we established a food pantry with the Utah Food Bank. We're a pantry, not a bank. What next door is. So we have different criteria. We get different types of food than what they normally get. But we serve about 300 family or 300 people each week on a weekly basis. We've been doing it now for almost 5 years. Our numbers this year will be, the number of people served will be about 14 to 15,000 people. We're doing it on a Friday, every Friday. We also operate a soup kitchen, and our numbers there have gone from, I think the first time we did it, we had more soup than we had people. I think we had 6 people that day, and now we're up to 60, 70, 80 people a week that are served. And it's primarily homeless people and people low income and people that are hungry. And no questions asked. It's all free. We partner with the LDS Church. They help us out. They actually participate in the program, both in the food pantry part and soup kitchen. So we're doing that, and then I came up with another idea, but I can't remember what it is. But I think my congregation's getting to the point now that they're, you know, enough's enough, you know. But, yeah, one more thing, just one more thing to be announced. So that's what we do, and you know, I'm really proud of the people that are helping us out. We've got a great relationship with the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, and they've been instrumental in helping us out. And we're doing some good work. I think we're seeing a lot, you know, now that the hotel industry is down a little bit and the business is down a little bit, we're seeing a lot more people. And we will see it until things start back up again, and then it'll be, you know, the numbers will fluctuate a little bit, but they don't fluctuate too much. You want to stop by anytime? No questions asked. If you need the food, we give the food out.
And if there is someone we know that might need that, what time do you do that?
It's Fridays at, right now our winter hours are 4 to 5:30, and summer it's 5 to 7. And then the soup is 11:30 to 1 o'clock on Thursdays. Good soup too. Darn good soup.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dave.
that all?
What I think is, unless there's anybody else that has any.
Now's your chance.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Ben
You're welcome to stay.
is up.
You're welcome to stay.
Well, hello, Ben.
Hello,
Is that
can you hear me?
Lin-Manuel Miranda?
Am I hearable? Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, can you hear us?
Sure can. If you are able to get closer to the microphone, it would help, but I can hear you, yeah.
We went to Al too. All right, okay, I'll bring the Al closer.
It's-
Hold
It's no biggie, Karen.
Don't unplug it. Gently.
Or there could be lots of shenanigans. Let's see. Let's just get that again.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris. Okay, Ben,
Thank you.
could you please introduce yourself, and tell us what brought you to Moab and why?
Sure. Well, my name is Ben Alter. I'm not actually in Moab right now, which I'm bummed about, but spending some time with the family in the holidays here in Northern Virginia. I came to Moab in April of 2021. I came to Moab because of what I think everyone from the DC area is sort of baptized with, and it's this ideal of service. However, once I finished college and realized that service to the federal government is very boring and pays way too much, I decided that I wanted to check out some cool places. So I wrote out some of the pandemic in Austin, and I was looking for local government opportunities. And the most exciting one I found was a post for an AmeriCorps Vista in the Economic Development Department here in Grand County. So I answered that. I spoke with then Director Elaine Gisler, and I moved at the end of March and started in April. You know, I visited Moab when I was 11, and I had some memories of it, but really all my memories were Red Cliffs Lodge. So I was very surprised when I came that it was actually much more urban than I remembered. Yeah, that's what brought me here. I've been here since April, and so that would be coming up on almost 2 years, a little over 2.5. I think that's the why. I know there's another part to that question. Did I answer it?
There is another part to it. And well, what brought you to Moab and why? And what community activities are you involved?
Sure. So shortly after I moved to Moab, I was looking for ways to get involved with the local literary scene and found that it was sort of in existence, sort of not, kind of hard to track down. So during the Red Rock Arts Festival in the fall, I put on a poetry reading that I'd like to think was very successful. It was certainly very fun. Since then, I've worked with the folks at the Moab Arts Center to put on different poetry readings, prose readings, and workshops throughout the past few years. We've also done that with Back and Beyond Books, and I'd like to do a little bit more of it in the future, but I find myself juggling a lot these days. But it really brings together a really cool slice of this community. So I've enjoyed leading and also following for events like that. Let's see, gosh, other ways I'm involved in the community. Back before the Times Independent stopped printing in town, I would fold the papers over there with them. That was a good time. I have been the president of Teak Haven Family Crisis Resource Center since June of 2022. That would be about 1.5 years now. That's been an incredibly rewarding experience. I say challenging only because it has challenged me to rise to the occasion and do some incredibly hard work with an incredible organization that has quite challenging work. And that's been wonderful to work on a range of things, from how to put together a nonprofit budget to how do we help people when, you know, a grant from the state is 2 weeks delayed, but we need those funds now. That's been a really wonderful source of community involvement for me. Let's see. I'm still somewhat involved with the Moab Area Housing Task Force. I attended while I was working for Grand County, and sometimes I still attend when I can, just as a citizen participant. I won't claim that I've done any of the work that they've done, but I certainly contribute to quorum. Let's see, what else do I do? This past summer, I worked for Utah Conservation Corps. I was based out of the Moab field office, which surprisingly does very little work in Moab. But I got to do some really great work in the BLM recreation area in Price and in LaSalle Mountains, and even as far up as Provo. That was direct service work in support of an array of conservation projects, and included working with stakeholders to plan a new trail through a burn scar, and servicing chainsaws, and hunting for invasive species. And by hunting for invasive species, it's literally getting in a kayak and pulling them out with your hands, which was pretty cool as well. I always like to end on this note, but I got to judge this year's Trashing Show.
Nice, that is a nice one. Okay, so question number 2, EDAB exists to advise and support the Economic Development Department in its efforts to strengthen area businesses. What do you think Grand County's greatest assets and attributes are?
There are a ton. And I think that the previous candidate touched on some really good ones. So I might be reiterating that, but I promise I thought of it individually. So one that I interface with pretty regularly that is the reason I stayed in Moab, and it's not for the nature, it's for our community. It's active, it's growing, people want to be involved. You meet people who wear too many hats. I think that that is absolutely an asset that so many organizations harness in this town. And that's why, despite how small this place is, we're big when it comes to the number of nonprofits that, serve the gaps that our services can't meet because we're just a rural community. That's why we have some incredible businesses that, for our small town actually have some of the best visitation products, in the country when it comes to visiting these lands and going out and having an incredible four-wheeling time, or getting on the river, or doing both of those in one day. So I think that our community is active and it's growing, and I think that they contribute to every pocket and every fold in this area. I think that's an asset. I also think, touching again on those local businesses, I think that we have, and I'm seeing it more and more with the non-traditional businesses, but we have a great entrepreneurial ecosystem. We have a great, in particular, cottage manufacturer ecosystem. The resources for these people and these businesses to succeed are not entirely there. And so they've got a lot to do. They've got to make the product, they've got to sell the product, and they've got to find a way to get the product out of Moab, whatever that is, whether that's manufacturing, custom backpacks, or some of the welders we have in town. I think that there are definitely some shortfalls that they experience, but they are absolutely an asset. They're innovative and they contribute so much. And with the right resources, they have what it takes to really just, I wouldn't say redefine what Moab offers, but just continue to boost all the different things Moab offers. So entrepreneurial ecosystem, it's huge. And that was something we tried to work on, and I'd be excited to work on more. I also think an asset is that we're an artery for commerce. 191, it's definitely the bane of my existence sometimes. I think we've all been there. But, with a little reframing, or on a good day, we don't have to cross the street. There's so much opportunity in what 191 provides. People have to come through Moab. Truckers have to come through Moab. A lot of people who are traveling to go see family, or just, I don't know, whatever else people do to get in cars. The point is that, 191 is this artery of commerce, and we happen to be on it, and we have this great product. But we could be like another town that's on 191 that doesn't have a great product, and they still have people coming to 191 as well. I think that despite our community issues and the quality of living that 191 challenges, I do think that sometimes we need to reframe our thinking about how can we harness this asset that we have, because we just have so many people coming through, and there are so many ways to reach them and take advantage of what they have to offer. And the last thing, and it touches on the first, is the attention from youth. I love hanging out with young people. I love whenever I think I'm the youngest person wearing too many hats. Then I meet someone who's 4 years younger than me, and they're doing really cool things as well. And they're also way too busy, and they still find time to go climbing. You know, I don't know, you know, 3 out of 5, I don't know the fraction, but, you know, so many of these people are gonna settle down here. They're gonna buy homes. They're gonna start families. They're gonna be contributing to this place for generations to come in ways that we can't predict at this moment. And especially with COVID, people are thinking of outdoor recreation, not just in terms of how they travel, but how they live. This community's appeal is not going away. There could be something that, you know, as we always talked about with the EDD, maybe someday the tourism bubble will burst. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but I'm certain that the quality of life bubble, the attraction that this place has to settle here, I don't think that's going to burst anytime soon. I don't even think we've seen how big it's going to get. Youth want to be here. They want to be involved with their community. We need to bring them in.
Great answers,
And
Vince.
it's really pretty.
So on that note, what do you think the challenges are?
Good amount of them, you know, like any community. I'll start at the tip of the iceberg that I think we talk a lot about: cost of living and noise. Cost of living, it's a nationwide problem. It's not just us. Housing is certainly challenging for us. And I would say, you know, the problem with housing here is it's a multifaceted issue. It's not just affordability, it's availability. Those are really stressful challenges alone. When you have both of them, it's tough. And I do think that quality of life, when we talk about noise, you know, the people I spend a lot of time with, it matters a lot to them. I know a lot of people who have left this community for that issue. I don't want to come down on a polarizing political topic, but I do think it's important to realize that it's a challenge. I don't think anyone would disagree on that. I definitely think the challenge that we face is probably a challenge that most small rural communities face, because this is the first one I've lived in, but it's, you know, it's a concern, maybe even a fear to step up and grow and change into whatever is the next thing. And I think part of Moab's history is so jarring. We were one economy, and then we were another, and then we were another. We have a very monolithic look at things, and the reality is that we need to kind of have our hands all over the place to really step into whatever tomorrow requires in Moab. And I think that, you know, there's fear, and I want to respect that fear, because fear is something that comes from a place of care. But then I also think in some pockets there's narrow-mindedness about that future, and there's definitely this has worked for me, and I don't see why it doesn't work for others, and I don't think it needs to. And, you know, I want to politely challenge those people to think about a future that they are not part of. Think about a future that a plurality of this community wants, whether it's a majority or not. On that note, I think another challenge that this community faces, and I think it comes down squarely to the department that I used to work in and would love to continue to help, is the messaging around the future of economic development in Grand County. When I worked at the Economic Development Department, you know, I was honest about it then, and I will be about it now. There wasn't a messaging strategy. You know, a lot of it was we were trying to, this phrase came around a lot, build the plane as we were flying it, but it still doesn't change the fact that, you know, if you're not communicating a vision for the future that is cohesive and brings people in, you're losing people. It's not even that you're not bringing them in, it's that you're losing them. If I were to join the board, that would be something that I'd be really, really gung-ho about supporting is, you know, do we have a vision? How are we communicating it? Because that message is vital to making the change we actually want to see occur. And the last challenge I'll cite, and I think that it ties into messaging as well, is when we lose local control. I'll say when we lose local control, because I don't think Grand County sits in a place where it inherently doesn't have local control. You know, politics is a revolving thing. We build and we burn bridges constantly. I think that as volunteers of the board, we need to realize that and also know what our priorities are and how they remain evergreen, no matter what the political situation is in our town or up north and anywhere in between. I think that we really need to be able to cut across and advocate for ourselves and do it in a preemptive fashion, because there are so many ways that we can partner with folks that, can become our antagonist if we don't partner with them preemptively. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I don't think we sit in a position where we inherently don't have control of our community. I think we do. I think the moment that we drop the ball on messaging, I think the moment that we don't bring in partners, I'm talking mostly partners from the state, but also other local partners, when we miss those key partnerships, then we risk losing that control. And then it's cascading from there. So the important part is never being in that situation in the first place.
Okay.
That's all.
That's it. Okay. No more questions. Yeah. So what professional experience and perspectives would you bring to the forthcoming strategic planning process?
Well, I wrote most of the RFP, but I don't think that should mean much, because I feel like that RFP could have actually been narrowed a bit. So I don't know if I'll brag about that. But certainly I want to bring back the experience I got with the county. I really feel that in my 2 years and change there, I had the experience of a lifetime, and I love the folks at the county, and I want to support them. And we were able to create some fantastic relationships that I don't want to lose track of and I want to support. I certainly think everything that I was working on with the county, I want to bring back again. I know that's a bit vague, but that's where I'll start. I think that context about what the economic development program, what the department has been for a few years now, even if it has been mostly characterized as disorganized, I want to be able to bring that context. I know that with every day as folks go in and out of the revolving door and go on to wear new hats and have new responsibilities, before you know it, there won't be anyone in this room who is part of the diversification program. And, I'm not here to bring it back, but I certainly want to communicate some very strong, opinions that I heard from businesses and sentiments and trends that I saw to the folks who have answered RFP, whose name I've forgotten. Oh, Better Destinations, I think. But I want to be able to bring that context. I think our history is so important. It's not something to dwell on, but I think we did learn a lot, and I want to be able to bring that knowledge. I also find that whether it's volunteering or my current work, I have a lot of hands right now in the nonprofit world. I don't think that the nonprofits are going to be skipped over in this process, but I still want to be there and make sure I'm advocating for them and just see that they are part of every aspect of this process, because the reality is that return on investment is just such a narrow way to think about economics, and it's an even narrower way to think about community development in the future of this place. There's so many ways to assess returns that are other than dollars and cents. And so I want to make sure that that voice is at the table. Otherwise, in my volunteer and community and in my professional work in this community, I have had so much fun. I have a real zeal for getting folks together, synthesizing different ideas and trying to find consensus. And frankly, if consensus can't be found, telling people we have to compromise. That is, that may sound like a nebulous professional thing that I've done, but when I was doing it, it felt pretty real, and coming away from it, it felt pretty powerful. I want to help whoever it is that's coming into this community, just ingratiate them and show them this is the context and this is how people talk about these issues. And there's going to be a whole host of opinions, and I want to help you cut through and try and find ways that we can compromise, because that's just productive for our community.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. What would you hope to gain from your involvement?
Kind of a weird question. I don't really know what I would gain. I mean, it'll be nice to see everyone again. I definitely want to think about, like, if I could flip this question, and if it's avoiding it, then definitely let me know at the end. But I want to think about how I can contribute to it. It's really just kind of some of the things I've already said, broadening our understanding of what return on investment is for a community. It's more than dollars and cents. And there are ways to also make money while we're achieving community goals. absolutely. Outreach. I want to make sure that we have a strong message about whatever vision we come up with, and that we communicate it every second of every day, that the department, it's baked into everything the department's doing, because that's how they succeed. I want to advocate for this community up north. I think that that's a daunting thing. I think that a lot's put on commissioners, and I want to see this board go with them and try and do some of that work. Maybe that's something that I gain, is having fun in Salt Lake. I don't know. And on that note, you know, I also, with my work with nonprofits and whatnot, I still work closely with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And I think that I understand on both a broad and an acute level why this board exists. And I want to find awesome projects that they're going to like, so we can not just get the money to do them, but so that we can show that we want to be their partner. Because that was always what I thought was the most important thing about the application. Let's get something in to remind them that Grand County likes working with them. I don't really know what I would gain. I'm sorry. I want to think about how I can contribute. You know, I think I gained a lot from my time working for Grand County. So I kind of think of this opportunity as a way for me to give back to it. So short of hanging out with Quinn and Mallory every now and then, and Sky, yeah, I don't know what more I could gain. Ben and I could like talk about the dead. Yeah.
He means the Grateful Dead, not dead people.
Well, not all of the Grateful Dead is with us anymore. So I mean, anyways, that's all.
And then last question, Ben, would you be able to participate regularly in person or via Zoom? The last Wednesday of every month from 3 to 5.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, I think that's it. And then I'll bring it to the board and see if they have any questions. Does anybody have any questions for Ben? Okay, so Ben, thank you so much, and you're welcome to stay on or pop off and
Enjoy your family.
and yes, enjoy. What Virginia are you in?
West.
I'm in Northern Virginia, so I'm like 30
Northern,
minutes
okay.
outside of DC. Yeah, as much as I love these meetings, I probably will jump off because it's 6:30 over here, and I'm gonna heat up some leftover Chinese. But thank you all so much for taking the time, and look forward to speaking to you in the future.
Great, thank you,
Thanks,
Ben.
Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, Forrest,
Yes, ma'am.
you are up, sir.
Yes.
I can hear it.
Is Forrest or Ashley?
It's Forrest.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay,
We're in.
so hello. Forrest. Can you please introduce yourself? You don't actually, I mean, do we have, yes,
course.
we do. Yes, would you please introduce yourself? What brought you to Moab and why?
I'm Forrest Rogers still. I started getting involved in Moab in 2017 when I conducted a market development or community assessment for the Moab Museum. I did that for a year and a half, was on retainer as a consultant to the board and the staff. And then when the then director relocated, I was asked to step in as director, which I did and commuted from Spokane, Washington until 2 years ago, October.
And what community activities are you involved in?
I consider the museum a community activity. I consider my professional work a community activity. During the time here, we've really reached out and engaged a lot of the community, not just the not-for-profits and partnerships, but the schools. And I think, you know, true museum professionals would say that the museum is the soul of a community. And I'm not sure that that's really true, but I do think that the role of the museum is to share the stories of this community in this region. And that requires us to be hearing the stories of the community in the region and being a venue for other voices to tell their stories and their stories about the region.
Okay, that's great. So this board exists to advise and support the Economic Development Department in its efforts to strengthen our local businesses. What do you think Grand County's greatest assets and attributes are?
At the museum, we consider the landscape our primary competitor for membership and attendance. Because nobody comes to museum just to go to nobody comes to Moab just to go to a museum. And our role is to help our traveling visitors especially understand that this is not their Disneyland, that this is a region that's been inhabited for millennia by many different peoples, many different cultures, that it has in the last 2 centuries evolved from a primarily extractive economy to a recreation and adventure economy. And I think we have a lot of the amenities for that. As the quality of broadband services improves and is more than adequate across the entire county, that will be a challenge. Transportation by air is a challenge, especially as we move to a new provider. And the challenges of moving along 191 through a downtown are other challenges. The reason to be here is because of the culture, not the culture of any one particular group, but the culture of the community. People come here and stay here because they feel centered or feel that this is a special place that speaks to them. So among our assets are in order to protect and preserve those assets, we need to do everything we can to emphasize the community nature of this town. And we have, I think, this town in 30, 40 years ago used to be one community, and it has now become a sort of constellation of smaller communities by demographics, by interest, by wealth. And I think that is an asset if we engage all those different little communities within that constellation. So there's a lot to be said for being in Moab. If, as others have said, you can afford to live here, you can work comfortably from here, whether it's at home or online and remotely.
You touched on it a little bit, but are there any the challenges, other challenges besides the ones that you mentioned?
I think the major challenge is a shared vision of a future Moab and a future Grand County.
Okay.
We talked earlier about the fact that, excuse me, you can't talk about Grand County without Moab. Some people think you can talk about Moab without Grand County. So the opportunity here to address that and to move towards action is to have a compelling strategic plan that reflects a shared vision and is owned by not just this board or the Travel Council board, but a commission that will put the stamp of approval on it, saying this is a county-wide priority. This is what we want to create this community to be.
Okay, so what professional experience and perspectives would you bring to the forthcoming strategic planning process?
In my professional life, even as a museum director, but previously as a policymaker and consultant and volunteer for regional development organizations, managing some small community task forces to develop economic development strategies for remote communities, working closely with universities and private enterprise to create research partnerships and to recognize that universities, as USU can be important players in growing an economy, contributing in various different ways, depending on the nature of the institution.
What would you hope to gain from your involvement?
I'd be really interested to see through the strategic planning process and have the opportunity to observe it, participate as appropriate. I've both done those kinds of plans and I've also hired people to do those kinds of plans. And I don't blame Ben for the RFP as a final project because it started very simply with an idea that to use Lisa's phrase, it's an asset-based community development exercise. And it's not just about jobs. It's about creating a place where people want to live and work.
Last question, would you be able to participate regularly in person or via Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody in the room have any questions for Forrest?
Do you have a question?
No.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Forrest.
Thank you so much. Okay, then we will move on to Ashley.
Hello, can you
Hi,
hear me?
Ashley. I can, even in the car.
I know, I'm in the car. I was almost lost on a trail, so then I would have been, calling from like under a pinyon tree. So this is improved. I'm in Gallup, New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if you've heard kind of a run through of these questions, but I'll go ahead and just give them to you a second time or fourth time. Can you please introduce yourself to the group and will you tell us what brought you to Moab and why? And then what community activities are you involved in?
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Kornblatt. I own Western Spirit Cycling. I've been an outfitter since 1996 when I moved to Moab. And I grew up in Arkansas and went to college and business school and ended up on Wall Street, which I quickly figured out I didn't love. And since then, I've been an entrepreneur. I figured out the other day, I think I've been making a payroll every 2 weeks of my life since I was 27 years old, with maybe a short exception of a few months of traveling. But and let's see, what brought me to Moab was really mountain biking and the lifestyle, getting outside, being that close to public land. And what activities have I been involved in? Right now, I'm serving on the Chamber of Commerce, which conveniently also meets on the last Wednesday of the month, so that is good. And I've served on a lot of statewide things that are a little bit relevant. One, for Governor Herbert and Governor Huntsman, they had the Outdoor Economic Ecosystem Task Force. No good acronym for that group. And we were the ones who came up with the idea of an outdoor recreation director for the state of Utah and lived through hiring someone and figuring out how that job worked. And it was super interesting because the person immediately got sucked into just recruiting companies to Utah. And we quickly figured out that wasn't what we had in mind for what the job should be, which really led to what the job is and sort of relevant to you guys is how the outdoor economy should work, how the outdoor economy can work, and how recreation communities can find balance and that type of work. And then I served on another sort of related board for the state legislature, which is called the Quality Growth Commission, and we administer the Lee Ray McAllister Fund. I'm going kind of fast because you guys have been sitting there for a while, but so that was an amazing experience because that commission was in charge of looking at both agricultural and recreation easements around the state. And it was so interesting how different communities were deciding which parcels were important to them as a community to keep as open space. and how to make that work. So I've learned a lot from that. And I think that was mostly the first question.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. So the Economic Development Advisory Board exists to advise and support the Economic Development Department in its efforts to strengthen local business. What do you think Grand County's greatest assets and attributes are?
Okay. Our greatest assets are the public land. What we're seeing across the country in my work at Public Land Solutions, which I'll talk about in a sec, is, local government used to be in charge of fire, water, sewer, sort of economic development, right? But now more and more communities are looking at trying to build outdoor access into their community in any way that they can, because as someone previously mentioned, there's this macroeconomic trend that's all focused on quality of life defined as outdoor access. So, I mean, there are many amazing things about Grand County that everyone has already mentioned, but I'll just add that is amazing and unique, the fact that we have so much close to town and away from town, public land all around us. And the trick is how to manage that economy that results from that.
Thank you. So on that note, what do you think Grand County's biggest challenges are?
Well, I think from the purpose of this committee, it has to do with how do you control private business? Or another way, how do you influence private businesses? I mean, there's a limit to what you can do, between the fact that private landowners have a big pile of rights that is difficult to manage, and that private businesses choose, I was thinking about what Mayor Dave said about supporting local homegrown businesses and the fact that we have a lot of Hyatt and Hilton and who knows what corporate entities owning businesses in our town now. But the trick is, how do we figure out how to motivate those people to either be better players, right? Because we really don't have, we need to work with the tools that we actually have in terms of controlling private business, and control is a really weird word. So I'm going to say incentivizing private business, either big or small, to help us get to the balance that we need to find.
Okay. What professional experience and perspectives would you bring to the forthcoming strategic planning process?
So about 10 years ago, we started a nonprofit called Public Land Solutions, and we are a recreation economy consultant. And I am in Gallup doing a project a little bit like the Moab project. We didn't apply or submit a proposal for the Moab project because we felt like we were a little too close to Moab, and it would be better to have an outside person and get their perspective. And it'd be fun to learn to see how they go about some of the same type of analysis and stakeholder engagement, and getting to the place that you're building something that is not going to go on the shelf, that is going to be implementable, if that's a word. So I'm kind of up to my neck in very similar activities, and really excited that Moab and Grand County are doing that exercise. I think it's really important.
What would you hope to gain from your involvement?
Well, I think Moab.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Ashley, it feels a little open-ended. I don't know if it's your involvement on the board or in the planning process. That you
Sure.
Choose one.
Well, I mean, always learning is important, and I think that Moab has some really unique challenges, and I have some interesting ideas that it would be good to see if they fit, work, help, would be useful, kind of thing. So what would I expect to gain? Just the opportunity to give back to the community and be part of something that I think could really help.
Okay, well, thank you. And would you be able to participate regularly in person or via Zoom on the last Wednesdays after your chamber meetings?
mercifully, the chamber meetings are first thing in the morning, so I'd have a little gap. Yes. Yes, and thank all of you for serving. I really admire everyone for participating. It seems like we have a really good group of candidates, and it seems like a high-class problem you have.
So I'm gonna turn it over to the group and see if anybody has any questions for Ashley.
I have one. Actually, I think the phrase you used was something about getting to the balance that we need to find. And sort of talking about managing the economy that comes from our access to the outdoors. Can you talk a little bit, I mean, obviously it's a huge question, but just very briefly about what that balance looks like to you?
Sure. So every community has a housing shortage right now, and the tactics that they're using to figure that out. But you know, you're out of balance if you have no place for your employees to live. And you know, I heard the statistic that 30% of Grand County is second homeowners. So that just feels out of balance. Now, what tools do we have to work on these things? I'm not sure, but it's good to look at other communities and see who's done smart things that would help fix that balance. And also just the, you know, I'm in Gallup, and there's a lot of poverty here, and it's mostly, and it's pretty amazing, and it makes Moab look fabulously wealthy. But at the same time, I know that there are kids who go to school. I volunteered as a soccer coach for most of the last 20 years in Moab, and there are kids who don't have enough food, you know? So we definitely have to get to the point where we can reduce those numbers, and you never completely fix everything, but you can definitely get to a point where it's a little more balanced in there, and the amount of challenge that you have for folks that don't have what they need is a little smaller and more easier to help them.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ashley. So if you want to continue your drive or whatever it is that you have to do, you're more than welcome. Thank you so much for putting your name in the hat.
Sure.
Thank you, Ashley,
you.
very much.
Yeah. Thank you guys, and I'll just stay on and listen for a little bit longer, and thank you, all of you, for all your service.
Thank you, Kate. Cheers. So at this point, are we going to do the awkward deliberation in front of everybody?
And how you want to do it, Forrest cannot, if there's a vote, he cannot vote for himself, but he can vote on all the others, or you can just make motions to move people forward to the commission recommendation.
Okay.
That's a question that I have, because it's a numbers thing, and I'm not gonna math. But if Forrest can't vote and Shaylee's not here, do we have enough
So why
members to
can't
get
you
that
vote?
done?
For himself.
A simple majority of the.
Okay.
I mean, if he can, that's cool. I'm just asking the math question.
Yeah, Mary, I did not, maybe I'm
I would think, I mean, I voted for myself.
Okay.
I mean, if he doesn't vote for you, I mean, why don't you vote for yourself? I mean, I don't think, the same thing was asked. You know, it happens all the time where, you know, people are, you know, nominated for something and they either say yes or no, and they say who agrees to have Forrest as chair. Forrest can vote for himself. I don't know why this would be any different, but it could be.
Are you comfortable with that? So there's 4 of us that are voting members, is that correct?
Yes, that's a quorum.
Does that math?
Well, there's 4 out of, what do we have? Just Shaylee is the only one who's missing, correct?
Well, and
then-
Denise.
Right.
Yeah.
Who we're filling. I have one question, as far as what we need to fill and the qualifications of the applicants, are they all qualified for each position? Or do we need to worry about who's from the county and who's filling the other open positions?
At large, business community.
Right, what do we?
Like which positions are getting,
We have 2 positions that represent the private sector. So that would include Dave and Ashley.
Business owners.
The museum is a not-for-profit corporation, so that could be considered a business
Private
or
sector.
private sector. And then one position for residents of voters in Grand County, which I think is
Everybody.
Everybody.
Does anyone know Seek Haven's status? Are they a 501c3 nonprofit or a not-for-profit LLC?
I think
they're
Yeah, they're 501c3.
But the museum is a non-501c, not-for-profit LLC.
No, it's a 501c3, not an LLC.
Got it. Sorry, I'm just trying to.
I suppose it's up to us
My hair
to help
splitter.
define
The attorney and-
what that means, right?
Right.
I think all of them.
Representative of the private sector, I mean, there's
Does that
not,
include-
there's not a definition in front of us. We get to decide what that means.
It's a private business. Okay, great. That's
Well,
perfect.
private sector, yeah, what does that mean? But do you have to be a business owner or do you?
Right.
Because
There's
I know
obviously
that
strength
the
to that.
charter makes a
but-
distinction, right? There's a representative of the private community at large, and then there is representative of the business community. So I'm trying to think where that charter splits those hairs to see who falls into what space. Not trying to make things complicated.
No, I don't think you are.
It's just described as the representative of the private sector,
Correct.
right?
So basically, it's all of the candidates collectively would fit into that space, correct?
As I understand, you as a voter decide that you see them that way, right?
I
As
think
a member of this board, you get to
Ashley's
make
the
that
one
call.
that would represent, like, didn't Dennis, didn't, represent the
He was business. community.
business, so, it's like Ashley's the only one that really represents business.
Mhm.
So it's almost.
Well, Dave's still
And Dave
Dave's still the
still
owner
owns
as
the
well.
Dave's Farm.
Oh, he owns it, he just doesn't
So
manage it.
private
Okay.
sector,
Okay.
I'm cool
You're
to
right.
lump everyone together.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they could all qualify for any of them, yeah. I would just like to say, thank you so very much. I have had a wonderful time on this board. And I really love the work that we did together and where it's going. And I would feel great. I mean, this is a really good group of candidates who put their name in. But I just really thank you so much. And Ben and Sky, I'm so excited for you guys. Like, and I'm sad to see, you know, but it'll be, I got other things to figure out.
We know.
Yes, I'm not done. I'm not dead yet.
Is there open public meeting?
Yes. But thank you. I just wanted to put that out there. And, so do we, I mean, I would really love to get everyone, even non-voting members,
That's why we're here.
Yes,
That's why we're here.
to sort of roll a discussion.
I see a lot of value in having some long-term members of the community on this board. I think that's something that we are lacking a little bit.
I have another meeting at 5, so I'll be leaving soon, so I'll give my take. I think Dave didn't really understand as much the mission of this board. I think he more, you know, his answers were more geared towards what would he do to help the city, like he'd be a great person on the planning commission in the city. You know, because I don't think he recognized the strategic plan we were talking about. He was talking, you know, he shifted to the strategic plan of the city.
I feel a little
Well, yeah,
responsible
in
for
his
that though.
defense,
Yes,
I
and
was like-
because I mean, if you weren't a part of these
But
discussions,
that's also.
you wouldn't even know what
But that's
this.
something as education of coming in, understanding what the board's job is. You know, what is your job? And I love Mayor Dave. I'm just saying that if I was standing back and didn't know these people, and I know all of them, and I think equally about all of them. If I was listening to the interviews, I felt like Ben and Ashley
and Forrest have a better understanding of what the mission of this board is. The mission, you know, and what we're trying to do with the strategic plan. You know, because as far as personality and people, they're all amazing. Community members, they all do super jobs. It's just, if I can take the personalities out of it, I felt Ben and Ashley and Forrest did a better job of answering questions, but they had a better understanding of what the mission of this board was.
And economic development as a whole.
And economic development as a whole.
I think for me, following on what Mary said, and this is where I'm a hair splitter, but I think I want to say this out loud because I'm making assumptions and I'm hoping that this group can correct any faulty assumptions that I'm making. Because if the premise is wrong, then the way that I'm thinking is wrong. But when I think about the mission of this board specifically and what it is that we're tasked with doing and what we need to do in order to be effective, I think all of the candidates are amazing. And we have the Economic Development Department and they have a mandate and a mission. And we have this board and we have a mandate and a mission. And I think that all of the candidates are amazing. We benefit from all of them, but for the specific mission of this board, for me, it was Forrest and Ben. And Ashley, with all of her experience and everything that she has, if I were the Economic Development Department, I would pick her up as a consultant in a heartbeat to see how to expand that outdoor recreation component, because it is such a huge opportunity for this department. I felt like Ben, with his experience he represents a different demographic. He represents a different voice of the community. He's very in touch with our huge nonprofit sector, who's going to be doing largely a lot of the work and receiving a lot of the grants that we're doing to try to diversify the economy and work with economic development. And he has experience with that process. And I think that he would be a really valuable asset. And with Forrest, I don't think not making change is the bad thing, because there's a learning curve for everything, but there's a curve of efficacy. And I really feel like, piggybacking on what Karen said, this board is starting to fire and really start to get the hang of the process and what is the mandate of the board and what are we tasked with doing? What are the parameters of that? And then how do we push against those boundaries to be really effective? And I feel like having that consistency of leadership that Forrest has provided and understanding that process is really, really valuable. And all the candidates were great. And like I said, man, Ben, if I were you, I would be looking at her as a consultant as part of the strategic planning process. But even with the strategic planning process, and again, this could be a faulty assumption, but this board isn't really involved in the steering committee in any meaningful way. And certainly we have input, but really our mandate is to identify those projects to represent, to forward and recommend to the commission to put forward for some of those competitive grants. And that's where, if I'm wrong in those assumptions, like, that's why I wanted to say that. So you guys could say, no, you're probably wrong about that. We do something different here.
No, that's what we're doing here.
I'll say one more thing, then I'm gonna take off, because I'm not a voting member. The other thing that I thought Ashley brought to it was her connections with the state, her understanding how the state works and how the state runs, because we are working with the state a lot, and having someone with that background would be, you know, her connections and the relationships she's already created up there would be very beneficial to this board. But they're all good candidates, and I trust you to make the right decision, and any decision would be the right decision.
Well, we're
in my
just
opinion.
forwarding a recommendation.
But I recommend.
That's right, that's right. You're the one that has to decide.
But I would, you know, no matter what you forwarded, I would support. I'm just saying that. It's just that I would really, you know, the three that I think would really understand the mission of this board.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Oh, I see you guys.
Happy
All the
Thanksgiving.
good-
Yes.
Happy holidays. Off to my next meeting and then off to.
Don't forget your jacket.
I won't, 'cause it's cold out there.
Oh, yeah, right, your coat.
Did you have, any thoughts on Mayor Dave?
Do you want, I think they're all great candidates. Those were just the ones that, for me, selfishly, I'm always looking to see who has the assets and the resources and the things that aren't covered. Because I feel like where I have been successful in life is being able to identify where those deficits are and what I don't have. And the candidates that stood out the most were the ones that had those deficits. And I think, you know, like I said, with Ben, it was the connections with the nonprofit community, representing the demographic, having that experience in Forest with that understanding as well. Ashley, I swear to you, huge asset and resource for the Economic Development Department, because that seems in alignment with their charter. And I absolutely loved what he's doing in the community. Amazing. Not lacking anything. The other ones just was like, oh man, I could really use some of that.
Yeah. I mean, with Mayor Dave, I love the connection with the city, obviously, because I really would like to see where we close that and become better partners.
Do I get to weigh in on this?
Sure.
So the way I would rank them is Forrest for several reasons, but for the continuation and his role. Ashley, I actually was one that asked her to apply. I think Ashley brings a great deal of business, as well as the outside perspective, the public lands, and the commoditization of, you know, the biking industry. This is becoming competitive. She brings a lot of competitive advantage. I will argue for Dave Sackerson to be moved into that third spot for two reasons. One, I spent a lot of time with him serving what I hear about in a lot of council votes and things, the missing middle, the marginalized. It's not talking about it, it's doing it. And as you noticed, he didn't even bring it up. I had to ask him about it so that everyone here would know. 14,000 people in this community. That is an eye to what's going on. I've done that, and it was in my interview for this job. I've seen school teachers who live in their car. I've seen people who don't speak English, who've been given diapers, no questions asked. Guys that were too proud to come to that a construction foreman will come and take food to 5 families. Dave Sackerson brought me the 1987 strategic plan once he heard that we were working on a strategic plan to show what was done when he was a council person, and to show a history, which ironically, there's some things in the 1987 plan that are being discussed in the plan we're doing right now. Another thing that he didn't talk about that he's involved in, what got him into the ministry was the previous minister took him to the jail one time. And he has never stopped that ministry. And it's not, he literally weekly is working with incarcerated people who are either going to get out or will never get out, and providing a network of activity and stuff to get these people back on their feet and successful if they get out. And I wish he'd have talked about that so you know it from him, but those are some things I know that I think gives a window into something that I hear about from the Vistas and a lot of different organizations here, that we need to give more visibility to the missing middle or the marginalized. And that's someone that's actually doing it. And so I think that input in a board like this would be very helpful. So those would be my top 3 stack rankings. But I know that you are all voting on this, and we have a great problem. We've got a great problem because we've got 4 good candidates. Sorry that we're losing you shortly after I got here, but we will still be in touch. But that's how I would stack rank the 4.
Okay, Colette, your choice.
Wow, do you really want me to weigh in on this? I was just gonna say that I was actually fielding a couple calls and didn't hear the complete overview from each candidate, so it wouldn't be fair for me to vote, but I think that you have some excellent candidates, and my advice would be just to look at your current board and look at some diversity in thought and experience, and as Ben pointed out, just to get some diversity of so each of your community member segments are represented.
You guys have anything to share?
Do I have anything to
Uh-huh.
share? I thought I was a non-speaking just person sitting here, but.
Non-voting,
Non-voting.
You're not voting, but you
I don't
can
wanna, I don't wanna put it in top 3 or, everyone seems incredible for whatever it is that they give. Hearing all of you talk about your top 3 and, I think the interview process for anybody is difficult. And I think that you gotta disregard the interview and think about the person. I'm terrible at interviews, and I know that. If you could just take me through what I am and then move forward, I'll be great. I think that I've known Dave, I've been here for more than 30 years. Dave's been here for 50. And that aspect of him and the community that he has served, not just from the church, but at Dave's Corner Market, standing there day after day, is definitely a different kind of person than we see. And the people who've been coming here have only lived here for 2 years, or 3 years, or 5, or 10, and he's seen the growth from what it was to the future. So I just want to advocate for him as well, because I know that he sees the community, and he definitely has a lot of other voices talking to him than some of the other people who you are voting on talk to. And I think that's really important, and not just, like I said, and I have been to the food bank, and I am not religious and I don't go to church, but I have helped them serve people as well. And I brought meat from my freezer that was, just on the edge of, and they've made soups. And I think it's just such an extraordinary thing that he gives to the community as that. But again, it's more about the voices and the longevity of people who know this place and have seen it change in such extreme ways, and have plans that came out in 1987 about ideas that we haven't even done yet.
Yeah.
And still, every time, every meeting, years and years, it's always the same thing, and there's a survey again, and there's a plan again, and there isn't, nothing's being done about it, it's just being talked about. And it's always the same, and everyone says, well, let's do it now, and that's great, so let's just do it. Great people, Ashley, I know each and every one of those people very well, and I think they're all extraordinary, so rough vote, but good luck.
And I really agree with Forrest remaining. I do think that these 2 years worth of serving is like really not enough. And having the turnover be that fast, it's really hard to keep that momentum going. I think that we get as a group. So another reason I would agree with that.
Okay, so can I do my 2 out of 3 right now? So I'm gonna say Ashley and Forrest. So let's do this. Everyone for Forrest? Should we raise this?
Spoken to.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, please, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, I think.
And Sky, I'd like to hear.
I want to hear Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that with Karen leaving the board, it's really important to have additional business owner at least be represented in the group, and somebody that's a business owner who's kind of like pretty tied into the Moab economy, right, as it is. And I think that Ashley does the strongest job of filling that. David has a potential of filling that in a different way also, though. I think that I value institutional knowledge and experience, and I think we can get that from different people in very different ways. I mean, Forrest certainly brings that as someone who has chaired this board, and would certainly provide continuity, so I really do support having Forrest stay. I think that Ben and Dave offer that in very different ways, but I think they both can offer that in pretty important ways, actually, to the board. So I see some strengths to both of those. I think that we have 4 great candidates that I would be happy to serve with on this board, any of them. So I have to say that as a starting point. Having to choose, having to vote, I think that I would support Ashley, Forrest, and I would lean towards Ben. But I think that it's a tough call, and we have candidates that bring a different set of experiences, and yeah.
Thank you, Chris, and I'm very sorry.
No, don't be
I did not
sorry.
think that. Sky, you're up.
The most effective advisory boards that I've had the privilege of having advice from have always been made up of a lot of deep experience. And so that's my only hesitation with Ben, is that I don't know how much, I just feel like that's the thing that's lacking the most with his leadership on this board. But other than that, I'm kind of in lockstep with both my colleagues. I couldn't say anything better than Ben and what Vika said. So that's kind of my takeaway.
Okay. I'm gonna just put names out and we can. What
We have
did I
to
say?
make a
What are your
Oh, my thoughts?
Yeah.
Well,
about the candidate pool?
I mean, I thought everyone was amazing. I am taking particular notice to what the Economic Development Department is saying, since they are gonna be working even closer with the candidates. And so I think, you know, like you said, I think Ben also, the fact that he worked for the department and he knows exactly what this mission is supposed to do. I mean, he stands out to me. Dave stands out to me because I've known him for 26 years, and he has seen what Moab was 50 years ago and where we are now. And there's a perspective that, and I don't feel that he's I told you so, and this is how it is, but he can sort of help guide the work that's gonna be going on with the economic development team here. Ashley I think she is I've worked with her on the chamber board. She is a dynamo and has a lot, we don't always agree on things, but she always brings a really great perspective and is respectful and has fresh ideas all the time and is always wanting to, you know, bring different perspectives to the table. So she's a super strong candidate for me. And then Forrest, you've done a great job chairing this board, and again, you know, like having that follow through, and we're kind of gonna get into some deeper work and not just, you know, trying to figure out who's gonna get how many tens of thousands of dollars. I think there's a larger mission, and you understand that, and I appreciate that. So, yeah, I'm gonna throw out names and we're gonna raise our hands.
And if I'm.
Oh my gosh, I keep forgetting.
No,
And
no,
you-
no,
no, you.
I'm
Yes.
just gonna say, I can excuse myself if my presence is inhibiting the conversation. So,
Not so far.
Yeah.
well, you
Look,
know.
I even ignored you, so I didn't even
You need to give your,
Pardon?
you need to give your input on the candidate.
Yes.
I think The challenge is the composition, and everybody brings something different to Colette's point about diversity. You know, different demographics, different circles of influence, different understanding or perspectives about their place in the economy and what they see around them. So I can't say anything specific other than that. I mean, we've got 4 really strong candidates. And this is what you get for nominating me to be the board chair. You get to do this. So.
So you're suggesting, Karen, that you want to make a motion on someone, or that we start making motions, or you?
I mean, I was
prefer
just
like a
wondering,
straw
should we
poll?
do we wanna do a straw?
Rock, paper,
Poll?
scissors.
Well, no, I mean,
I mean, that's one way.
show of hands,
See,
like,
If you do a straw poll that narrows down and you only get to choose 3 or 2 or whatever, great. But I think if you just threw out the 4 names, each of us would vote for all 4.
Yeah, so that's not.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if you limit choice, then I think we would get closer to a direction, but if you say we're just gonna throw out all 4, I think that you may find that everyone gets a vote, right? Because I was very swayed by what Ben said and because I don't have personal experience, for example, with Dave. And so now I'm very persuaded by his, you said the strength of the voice of the Economic Development Department. And they very strongly advocated for that. So now I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea too. I didn't consider that.
But also your
Do you-
friends.
does that make sense or no?
I'll put this out on the table.
You are
I'm friends with all 4 people on this.
For sure. No, I'm just saying,
And, like I say, this is a great choice. Again, in my advocacy, it is representing those who are not represented at this table and who have not been represented. They're talked about. We actually have the opportunity to put someone that touches, looks at, talks to several times a week, every week. We have a direct line. And to me, that's something I just want to advocate for, because grants are great. And I think that there's going to be open seats going forward. And we had the same problem yesterday with the Travel Counselor Advisory Board. We had 4 people for 1 spot. Today, the hard thing is we have 4 great people and we only have 3 spots. There will be another spot down the road. But this week, tomorrow night, there will be a line down Cane Creek that people probably, most of this town doesn't even know about. That someone is touching, talking, that can bring back data that is helpful. And that's just, and I want to leave when you do the vote, because whatever vote you do, I'm going to respect and stand behind and work very well with those 4 people, or with those 3 people, and be excited for any one of whom they are. So I appreciate the hard problem, and I have respect for you all. And I love that this is a hard problem, not an easy one. And so, all right?
Okay.
All right. I'll catch you on your way out.
okay.
Do you want the key?
No, I'm gonna walk around the corner.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is a great perspective that Dave has on the community. And I'm a year retired from managing affordable housing. So I was previously that connection to like those people, but we don't really have that right now.
I have a question.
Please.
Sky. The Justin, who is the USU representative, has he been formally designated by USU?
No.
Okay, and that is an ex officio position.
I believe so, yeah. So they'll need to just designate somebody. And we should just do the follow-up probably to say, we just need something in writing of who's gonna be
If he's gonna
representing.
be the liaison. Okay.
And we figured that Shaylee was gonna be the workforce person.
She's the
Did we agree to
chamber
that?
representative, so there
But
is
we
a
also are
workforce.
lacking that.
We're blocking that as well.
Well, except
But they have
for,
to be appointed, right? Or do they have to be appointed?
They are,
They can appoint themselves, I believe. like
they're
the-
nominated or they're recommended by the
That department?
Workforce Services. But Kelly has said that she's going to be on this assignment for some time and recommended, talking with Rachel Stenta or, somebody else from
Are
USC.
any of these people someone that they would recommend?
Pardon?
Are any of our candidates someone that they would recommend for a position? Because it's possible that one of those people could be serving the workforce
Mhm,
perspective. And we could have all of these fine candidates.
mhm.
Not if they're unrelated to the education, is it the
Are
education
you talking
workforce
about USU
aspect?
or the
None of those
workforce?
people fit that.
Somebody, Colette can maybe help with this. So we do have to have somebody, not necessarily, you said from the workforce service themselves, but representing the workforce, correct?
Yeah, and so, if there's someone that runs an HR department or, again, someone that's working with the workforce, maybe even like your local SBDC representative that does workforce training. It can be a variety of people, but you do want somebody that can speak and represent that group.
Right, okay. Which is
I
why we
am
thought
really
Shaylee could do
hoping
that.
or advocating that USU designate Rachel Stenta. Because we would get both. Because she has that depth of experience with Department of Workforce Services, and then she has that depth of experience at
Right.
USU.
And the city,
Yeah,
as a
that would be
recorder.
just really nice, but maybe that's just my wish list.
If she's available, she would be incredible.
Yeah, I agree.
I go back to what Colette said though, which is think about each of you that's on the board right now as voting members of the board and the people who aren't here today. And take all of those people into account and then say, what are your best additions for 3 more people? We all hate to see you go, Karen, but you are. So, you know what I mean? Like, just really, that's what it
well,
comes
since
down
we're
to. It's like,
changing the
because you're
bylaws,
advising the board for this guy, you know what I mean? Like, you're
right.
advising the commission, like, it's
Mhm.
really economic development on Grand County.
but since we're changing the bylaws, should we just add another person?
Next month, we'll work on it, yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
I have a really large board.
That-
What are we at, like 12?
It depends on how many ex officios participate.
True,
You're
true.
regular in participating, but others are not
True.
always. So one option would be to take one of us and say, we would really like to have you on the board. It doesn't work for you right now. We're trying to fit in the specific requirements to match what the bylaws say. But we would encourage you, with revised bylaws, we intend to increase the representation from the private sector or the public sector, whichever. And we would intend, with passage of the bylaws, to appoint you.
It would be great to have specifically a nonprofit representative, right? Somebody from that space that's.
That's a great
It's
idea,
just
and that's something
that.
we could do with the
We
bylaws.
didn't we have someone before when we first started, the gal that, sent on the board, I'm sorry, that was a.
It's not a required
That was a
person.
chamber board.
I mean, it's not one of our required memberships. So, but it could be. I mean, that's a great idea. Actually, it really is. I mean, that would be a representation of a huge portion of the community.
I think that's a great idea.
Well, and I would fill that.
You would.
And so
or
would
Ben
Ben,
would,
so would
or
Ben.
Or
the
Ben
C-
would,
or
yeah.
at CK.
Or Dave would,
Yeah,
Pardon?
or Dave would.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that a church is a nonprofit organization.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And certainly represents the sector that we're intending to have
Right.
represented through
Absolutely.
that. Which would be sort of like somebody representing underserved voices,
Mhm.
Right.
Absolutely.
right? I mean, like workforce,
Well, even
Like-
a church, like,
underserved communities.
that's,
Right.
yeah. That's a whole different, I mean, that's like not the nonprofits we think about every day.
Yeah.
That we don't include in our, because maybe we're not, all religious or whatever.
Okay, so then we'd have to ask ourselves the question, because we could easily add a nonprofit, and we have 3 candidates that would fill in that position. So do we want to add another number, basically, to fill that position, or do we stay within the number that we have right now? Right? Do you know
Well,
what
I
I'm
think
saying?
right now today, you're gonna have to recommend 3 of these applicants to the commission to fulfill our responsibility of the board
Right.
for now.
Right,
And
but if-
then the bylaws could
And then there could be a
be
separate
changed,
recommendation
and it
for
would
a
be a
change of
second,
bylaws
yeah.
that would allow.
that would
the-
allow for that.
Yeah, which is what I would prefer,
To add a whole nother
person. to
person,
the-
okay.
But, I mean, do we have 6 voting members right now? Is that the number?
That's
1, 2, 3, 4.
And Shaylee.
Shaylee is
Denise.
5,
Denise.
and then Denise is 6, and then
And
the
workforce.
workforce. So
Well,
his
workforce is a
posi-
voting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
workforce.
That's what we're.
Yeah.
So we're
Makes sense, too.
lacking-
I see, so we would then get to 8, which is an even number, which is a challenge.
Right.
Well, I don't know if they would have to be voting.
Yeah, they could be a non-voting.
That's
member,
true, too,
In
just
fact,
for that input.
I think Kelly was a voting member.
Mm-hmm.
I think Chamber and Workforce Services were voting members.
Gotcha, okay, that makes sense.
And I'm not sure how many of the action items we are going to undertake are going to split 4 by 4, if we added the not-for-profit.
Yeah.
So,
I suppose in that case, if you do have a split vote, then procedurally, then that could just get passed to the commission as a split recommendation, and then they have to make the call on it,
Yeah.
right? Which is a fair way to deal with that challenge.
They might.
But we want to have some sort of, yeah, maybe they don't. I mean, I do think we want to have some plan for how you get to decisions,
Right.
given the number of voters that we have on the board. I mean, that's an important thing to consider.
Of course,
I
bylaws.
think
are
my-
a discussion for
motion.
I think my recommendation, let me
Okay.
put it just as a
Okay.
comment
Yes.
first, before we make a motion, would be that we recommend 3 people today
Yes.
to the commission that we would support, and then we recommend adding a representative of the nonprofit sector, or something similar to that language. And we attach a name to it because we have a candidate that we
Right.
like in that position, and that it would be a non-voting member to keep the voting numbers then odd.
I like that for now. Do you want a motion?
That sounded like a motion.
Yeah.
I like
Do you
that.
wanna make
Yeah,
it
okay,
official?
then I'll make a motion.
And I don't know, can we make a motion on
the
the
process.
changing the bylaws? We can't. make
It's just a recommendation
Okay.
to the commission. I mean, that's what we do,
Cool.
right?
To
We make
consider.
recommendations, and then they tell us, you guys are crazy, or whatever, they can tell us whatever they want.
Right, they'll accept it or they won't.
Yeah. Or they can send it back to us and tell us to do something different with it, I think.
Mhm.
But so we'll start by making, well, we haven't talked about names though. Who each of these people are. I'll make a motion and then we can discuss
Okay.
and somebody
Right,
can
okay.
counter it if you guys have a different take. My motion would be to put forward, to recommend today the addition, the applications of Forrest, Ashley, and Ben, with a recommendation, a separate one, which will actually be a separate motion. So that's the motion. But just so you know what my plan is, would be to then make a separate motion for Dave to be the representative of underserved communities or nonprofit sector.
I second
What's-
that.
Yeah. Discussion around it?
Sorry.
No, I think it needs a second before
It
it becomes a motion.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
So, right.
Say words.
Well, I'm trying to think, I would recommend, because if the commission comes back, I would prefer, to add Dave as the third person and have Ben as the nonprofit, individual to fill that seat. That would be my recommendation.
I would go with that. I would support having Ben be a strong recommendation for a not-for-profit position on the board. And put that out in the motion, when we advance that to the commission, be very clear about the intent to have a member of the advisory board who represents the not-for-profit sector.
And then say the non-voting part,
I'm sorry?
and then make sure to include the non-voting part,
Right.
right?
And I mean, but so we're complete, like, we don't have that fifth vote to,
No, we need 3 people to vote for.
Yeah,
but I mean, we're opposite of what,
that motion
Is it-
doesn't work.
okay.
It won't
No, I
pass,
understand.
yeah.
okay,
So I,
but are you guys,
I think I'm willing to go with the position that you guys just stated.
Okay.
I think they're both, I mean, I think we have 4 strong candidates. We're all in agreement that we like them so much that we want them all to be on the board. We're just splitting hairs over how we configure the
Right, right, right.
recommendation. This
Right.
is something that
Without
we
just
can, I'm
pushing it
willing to
off on the
concede
commission.
on, like
Yes,
it's not.
right.
Because we
this is-
all
I'm
know
not
how
gonna
that
die
goes.
on that hill.
Right.
And I understand the logic you guys are putting forward, and it makes sense to me. Yeah,
Okay.
so why don't one of you make that motion?
okay, I'd like to, make a motion to elect, or is that, are we electing?
To
nominate.
To nominate or recommend to the, county commission, Dave Sackerson, Ashley Kornblatt, and Forrest Rogers for the present board positions, and with a recommendation to add a nonprofit sector with Ben
Alter.
Ben Alter as the nonprofit representative,
Non-voting.
non-voting nonprofit representative.
Second.
All those in favor? So.
Great.
Okay,
Well, that went well.
Motion
Yeah.
passes.
so passes 4-0.
So, congratulations.
Congratulations, yes, Ashley, yeah,
Well, the commission still has to decide,
No,
but.
oh, right. Congratulations for passing this step.
Yes.
And everyone
Thank you all for still being
moving
here.
forward.
Yeah.
All 4 candidates moving forward. All right, well, shoot, now I want to stay on.
Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate all your work.
Thanks,
Thank
Ashley. Thank
you.
you.
Good
Take
luck.
care, you guys.
Commission.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
And as we close, if I could just make a quick comment. Karen, thank you so much for all your work on this board and the experience that you've brought to it and the passion that you've brought to it. I've really enjoyed working with you on this board and appreciate everything you've done for Moab in this capacity and so many others.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I've been
guys.
learning a lot from the Strong Town blog thing.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's so amazing. Yes,
Yeah, I
it's
think
amazing.
Sharon
Thanks for that.
and Chris are the ones that really lit the fire under getting the city to recognize that they need to be involved.
Yeah, it's important.
And so thank you both for that.
Same to Forrest for your service and your willingness to continue forward.
Oh, yeah.
So both of
Here,
you,
here.
thank you.
Okay, are we, well, you're back.
The meeting is adjourned.
Good to
Thanks,
see everyone. Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.